Hi everyone, this is Dave from Dave's Archives, and today we're not going to do the usual retro commercials upload. Instead, I want to share with you how I transfer my VHS and Betamax tapes digitally and get them on my computer. A lot of folks, almost every episode and every live stream that I do, someone asks this on multiple occasions. I've been always replying with, I plan on making a video. So here we go with the video of how I do my tape transfer process. Now the process is a little involved, just to give you a heads up. It's not really difficult, but there's a lot of little pieces in between my process that I do. And it's going to require you to purchase these items or similar items to make your process the same as mine or very similar. So let's look at my process from a very high level view. Without going into details, I'm just going to briefly go over what each item is, and then we'll get into details about how they're interconnected and what the purpose of them are. So from this capture process screenshot I have here that I've put together, I have my VCR in the beginning, right? So my VCR connects to what we call a time-based corrector. That's the next piece of equipment after the VCR. The purpose of this is to clean up the image signal from your VCR as best as possible. That's all it does. The next step is to take that signal, that cleaned up image from your .tbc, and to move it to what we call an analog to SDI converter. And what this piece of hardware does, it takes your analog image and converts it into a digital package so that you can record it digitally to whatever you're going to be recording it to. In this case, my next step of this process is a field recorder. I do not like to use computers because there's a lot of involvement that goes into getting your computer set up properly for recording this material. Instead, I like to use something much simpler, which is called a field recorder. And this field recorder, it takes that digital signal from my Blackmagic mini converter and records it to an SD card. And the nice thing about this is that it also has a screen, a touch screen. You can set your parameters on here, your video codecs of which you want to be recorded as, so on and so forth. A very easy, simple process. And when you're done recording to your field recorder device, you simply stop, eject the SD card, and then pop it into your computer. And from there, you can straight edit from your SD card, or you could back up that data from the SD card to a larger hard drive and then edit from that hard drive, which is what I do. So the next step after that, which is step 5, editing your video. And I like to use Adobe Premiere Pro. Adobe Premiere Pro is a very easy software. It's very intuitive software for video editing, in my opinion, to learn and use. And it's widely accepted by a lot of outside third parties. So you can actually upload straight from this software to YouTube. Now, my export is usually in 4K. It's always going to be H.264 or MP4 or H.265, which is the newer video codec. But you don't really need H.265 because that is, I believe, 10-bit or 12-bit, I can't recall. And the color spectrum from analog video from a VHS tape is not going to be that wide, so it's not needed. Just H.264 is totally fine. So let's move into what each item does. The purpose of each of these pieces of equipment. Of course, your VCR. The most important piece. Make sure that your VCR has an S-video output because every single thing in here is dependent on you having an SDI output from your source or VCR. In my case, I use a Sony Betamax EDV9000, but you don't have to use this. It's very expensive. You can use another Betamax unit that has S-video. It's just a matter of finding them. Betamax are becoming very hard to find in working condition unless you buy it at a very high price from someone who has refurbished it. But either way, if you're looking to do Betamax, I would go with Sony. They were the founders of Beta, and they have the best hardware, in my opinion, for Betamax. VCRs for VHS are a little different. There's a wide spectrum of appliance or VCRs that you can buy that are all really good quality, but I usually used to use a Panasonic AG1980, which is another great prosumer VCR that was used in a lot of broadcast situations. The reason why I like the Panasonic is because the Panasonic AG1980 is because it has a built-in time-based correction. And again, as I mentioned earlier, time-based correction, with that, the whole purpose of TBC is to clean the image from your source or your VCR. But the Panasonic AG1980 has that built into it. Now, there's nothing wrong with doubling up on TBC. You can take a TBC cleaned image and you could double TBC if you want. It may not have any effect, but there's nothing wrong with that. So I use I still use a Big Video TBC in this situation for my Panasonic because it doesn't harm the image. It can only make it better, I say. So now I no longer have the Panasonic AG1980 that works. Both of mine have busted. So while I'm working on getting this fixed, which I have, and there's been no success, I just may have to pay up another $800 for a new one. I'm using something else. I'm using I think it's a Toshiba or Panasonic VHS DVD combo unit that has S-video output. You can find these very cheap on eBay, probably less than 30, 20 bucks, around that range, with some shipping fees and maybe even some free shipping. But that's what I'm using now. Now, I can see a slight difference in the quality, the image quality for me. It was a bit cleaner on my Panasonic, but not so much that you would say, oh my God, what happened to your videos, Dave? They look horrible now. So most people can't really tell. I can tell just because I've been doing it for so long. So you can definitely get away with a cheaper unit that has S-video out. So moving from the VCR, the S-video is going to feed into your time-based correction hardware. What the TBC does exactly is it fixes your image by taking each frame and correcting it within its hardware. So if there's any frame bending, it'll correct it. If there's weird artifacts, it'll correct it. If there's something that looks like tracking issues, it'll help correct that as well. And you can even change certain parameters such as your hue, saturation, contrast, sharpening, that, so on and so forth. I don't really do that with my hardware, but you can do that if you want, if you don't want to have to do it in post. Time-based corrector, can't stress enough how important this is. I use Big Voodoo TBC 10. You may find these on eBay every once in a while, every blue moon. Not really sure how abundant they are anymore, but I bought mine about 5 years ago. I bought 2 of them for about 20 bucks each. You can find, a lot of people don't know what they're selling. So you can find them very, very cheap, but nowadays, TBCs have gotten really expensive because people know that they're worth a lot of money if in working order. So just be wary of that. From my Big Voodoo TBC, I take that S-video signal and then I feed it into an appliance called an analog to SDI converter. And I use Blackmagic. I enjoy Blackmagic because they just have things that work, in my experience. A lot of people kind of shame Blackmagic on certain things that they produce. They produce a ton of prosumer and broadcast level equipment, but in my experience, they've always worked perfectly. So I would recommend getting the Blackmagic Mini Converter analog to SDI hardware. The important thing about this is you'll notice I'm not talking about audio at all. Audio is fed a little bit differently. So if we go look at this diagram real quick, from the VCR, your audio is not going to go into your TBC. You're going to skip your TBC and go straight to your analog to SDI converter hardware. The reason for that is because a TBC doesn't correct audio. It just corrects the video image. So your audio is going to be treated separately from your video from the VCR. Hopefully I'm not making this too complicated, but from the diagram, if you just follow how the diagram is wired up, you'll be fine. So from the TBC to the analog to SDI converter, that will take in your S-video from the TBC and your analog from your VCR and convert that image, sync everything up, convert it, and turn it into an SDI digital package, basically a digital video. And the reason why that's important is because we're going to take that video, that newly converted digital video, and move it to the next step, which is a Blackmagic Design video assist or a field recorder. And if you already have a field recorder, that'll work great. Just got to make sure it has SDI as far as this process goes. So the next part is a little hairy. It's a little weird. We're going to talk about the adapters in between the TBC and the analog to SDI equipment. Now, this is very important because without these little tiny little pieces, this won't work. So in my setup, you use a standard S-video cable coming out of your Voodoo TBC, but you can't connect that directly to your analog to SDI. The reason being is because it uses BNC interfaces or BNC inputs. BNC is another term for a type of cabling that is commonly used in broadcast situations. So in this instance, you'll need an adapter for this to work properly. So as you can see in the diagram, my S-video cable connects to an S-video adapter, which is a female to female. Both ends are female. So after you've connected your S-video cable to this female adapter, you'll take the other open female input and connect it to a S-video Y adapter. It's getting kind of weird. So this is a 4-pin or S-video MEL to DW BNC MEL connector. This Y adapter is important because it's going to take and split the chroma and luma values of your S-video footage. So this is where I'm just going to break down a very high level what this does. So the whole purpose of splitting S-video into what we call BNC, this is required because BNC will not take a straight S-video input by using any type of single adapter. So what it's having to do is this cable, which is essentially one end is S-video and the other end is these two BNC outputs, is it's taking that S-video and splitting its two signals, which is a chroma, and luma signal, and converting them for a proper BNC input. Why this is important is because if you didn't have both of those signals split, you'd probably have some type of black and white image or something weird. S-video is comprised of chroma and luma. I'm not going to go into details because myself, I have forgotten a lot of the science behind it, but you can look it all up on Google. So at this point, your BNC input from your adapter, and take that video, convert it to digital, and then it's going to output that digital through one SDI cable and then move it to wherever you're recording it to. In this case, it is my Blackmagic Video Assist, like I said before, with SDI. Just make sure it has SDI inputs, and then you'll be good to go. And I've already went over the editing software. Again, you could use any flavor of your choice. I like to use Adobe Premiere. It's just a lot easier for me, a lot quicker, and I'm very familiar with it. So a lot of stuff at a high level was just talked about. I didn't go into details. You can Google a lot of this to learn about it more. I highly recommend you doing that. There's a lot of great forums out there that will discuss this and will put out a ton of material for beginners who want to learn more about the details of all these things. One is AVS forums. They are great. They have a lot of great people there who are very knowledgeable, and a lot of material that's been put out for you to really dig deep into this and dive deep. This is a rabbit hole of information, really, that you can get yourself involved in with the whole transfer process. Me, it wasn't an overnight thing. It took me some years to really understand. And as you can see here in my little video process screenshot or image that I put together, this is version 6. So I've gone through 6 different processes to get it right the way I like it. And it's probably going to change in the future when we have more advances in hardware that can do this stuff, because a lot of people are starting to do this, and it's going to become much more important in the future, I think. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it explained things enough for you guys to get you started in your video transfer process. For those of you who are just jumping in and like Whose Days Archives, I just searched for video process and you came up. Well, I do a lot of retro material. I transfer a lot of footage from tapes, and I've been doing this for quite a long time. So I hope this helps you all. If you have any questions at all, just leave them in the comments below. I'll do my best to get to all of you. I probably won't be able to answer all of your questions because I'm sure there's going to be a lot, but I'll try my best. Outside of that, I hope you have a fantastic day. Stay retro, my friends, and we'll see you on the next video. Take care.